What are we starting with? Are we starting with the opening thing?
Yeah.
All right.
You act like we've never done this before, dude.
It's been like a month. Anyway, as we do when we read posts by Star Citizen or by CIG, we want to read the opening paragraph. Not only does it give us their words exactly, but it also tells us the intent of this document that we're reading. So, being that this is the Roadmap Roundup, it says, Happy Wednesday, everyone. Every 2 weeks, we accompany the roadmap update with a brief explanatory note to give you insight into the decision making that led to any changes. This is part of an effort to make our communications more transparent, more specific, and more insightful for all of you who makes or help make Star Citizen and Squadron 42 possible. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Roadmap Roundup, the CIG community team. And this was posted back on December 21st. So there you go. It's the roundup. The roundup is actually quite short. So notable changes for December 21st, 2022. As mentioned this week, as mentioned earlier this week, this week in Star Citizen Alpha is targeted early 23 release or for release to the live servers. This was a change that week that was said that it wasn't going to be hitting live in 2022. However, like it's been a blink of an eye since the intended release date to now. So anyway, it is now reflected on the 318's release column on the roadmap. No other significant changes to report on this week. Our first roadmap update of the year will be February 8th. So that is... Wait, 8th? Oh, next month, 8th. Okay, we're not getting anything this month. Okay.
No roadmap roundups.
I thought it was going to start in the second or third week of this month. No, so we have to wait till the 8th to get an update. All right. That's super fun. That's fun. All right. Anyway, this update will include both extensions to the upstream and downstream teams. Nice. Upstream, downstream, for those who don't know, are upstream teams are the ones who have like the big ticket items and who are scheduled a year out, and then downstreams are only scheduled a quarter out, so they get new updates as each quarter is completed. And they a lot of their teams are stuff that they just kind of like pick up the ends and bits that are needed for whatever the upstream teams are doing. Majority, not all of them, but the majority.
When that finally comes out, that's basically going to be its own episode for the podcast. Because they normally, when we get the beginning of the new quarter updates,
they're chunky.
They're chunky, but they usually come out in bits and pieces, like over like 3 2-week periods. So over a month and a half, they'll give you the upstream, 3/4 of the upstream teams, and then the next one will be the last bit of upstream plus part of the downstream, and then the third one will be the last bit of the downstream. Well, this is saying that it'll have all of it all in one, and each time we get when Nazeris and I go through those at the beginning of the new quarter, when they're updating the roadmap in a big way like that, the progress tracker, those are a lot of information. Well, holy crap, this is this is gonna be
I really
huge.
hope they do not do a January month report, or it's gonna take us the entire month to get through all the information.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh boy. All right. To finish off what's been said, so schedule further into 2023, as well as the addition of features to the 319 column. Happy Luminaria, which is the Christmas event thing that is Banu related, I believe, in Star Citizen.
Yep.
And we'll see you next year. That is everything that was on the Roadmap Roundup. So that's like nothing really big change except for like some housekeeping stuff.
Wait, and that was the weird thing, because like the let's see, I wonder here. So the Roadmap Roundup didn't have anything being added, but
there's been a ton of stuff added.
Yeah, and a ton of stuff updated, and so it's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? So yeah, I thought it was interesting that
Actually, the stuff that was added
Jake was sneaky.
Is actually
like that.
not added. Okay, that's the wrong one. The Delta. I opened the wrong one. The stuff that was added. Remember, for us, it was for the ShinyTracker. It was added, but for them, it was they switched out cards. So the Polaris was already there, the Galaxy was already there, and the unannounced.
The
The unannounced
Polaris
was added.
wasn't there.
It wasn't.
Nope. Polaris wasn't. It wasn't an unannounced or anything like that. It was just all of a sudden, hey, we're going to start working on this in the beginning of April.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what the big thing was. I was like, Jake was sneaky about adding the Polaris. What?
Because they had done a lot of talking about it on the Star Citizen shows. Like we just went through that in the pre-show. Like they talked about it. They talked about exactly where and why and where they're at with it.
Yeah.
And they literally said, "Hey, we're looking at where to add this to the schedule, to the production, to starting Gray Box." And then like a week or so later, the roadmap comes out. It's like nothing's changed, but that was actually added.
Mm-hmm.
But like everyone who pays attention knew that they were looking for that. Interesting. It's just very interesting. Like the Galaxy wasn't technically added because that wasn't announced before.
Yeah, it was just changed to announce, and it's interesting because all it it was, and it wasn't the one that I thought it was, which is also interesting, and very good because the one that I thought it was is a very long concept art phase, and
I wonder if it's a bigger alien ship.
Yeah, but then there's this unannounced was added that's going into production. Versus before that, before this change, there there wasn't really any unannounced ships going into production. It was just unannounced ships in concept still. So let's go ahead and we'll pull these up real quick before we move on to the ones that are getting updated. So I thought for sure that the RSI Galaxy concept was let's see here, we'll open that up in another tab, and I'll show you the one that I thought it was.
What are you doing, Cat? What? I'm kind of in the middle of something. What are you doing?
See, that sound alert. That sound alert is working. The cat sound alert.
Yeah. Yes. Practical effects.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Was it this one? Yeah. So this is the one that I thought was the Galaxy.
Oh wow, that is a very long one. How many weeks is that?
67 weeks. Wow. Although it's 67 weeks
part-time.
Well, I think it's one. Two artists.
Aren't most concepts one dev, two devs?
A lot of them are one devs, but they one, sometimes two devs. Like this one's one artist for 37 weeks, but this one's two artists for 67 weeks for the concept phase. Whereas the Galaxy let's see, the Galaxy was 4 artists in 19 weeks. So even if you it's still double the amount of concept work essentially. Because this is 19 weeks at 4 devs, whereas if you changed, if you divided
weeks, right?
Yeah, if you divided 67 weeks by 2 to essentially say it's 4 devs working on it, you could reasonably say that 4 devs were working on it for 34 weeks.
So if you go to the scheduled deliveries,
almost twice as long.
It's the first unannounced vehicle under scheduled deliveries, not the Delta.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah, there's almost no work on the schedule on it. It's just unnecessarily long
because they picked it up and put it down.
Yeah, there's 4 weeks of concept on here all last year. Let's see. 2 weeks, because 4 dashes are 2 weeks. Every 2 dashes is 1 week. Yeah, no
Well, this is
work. It's just
this is based on quarter though. So let's. I wonder if we can find this one because this is showing us that one those 4 weeks essentially.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't anything going on, in essentially December, November.
mhm.
So we would have to go to a
Yeah. Remember I don't think the
previous
Shiny Tracker
report.
has gotten updated since the last roadmap update.
Well, it got updated for the one on the 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And we'll go back to this. So we'll open up this one. We'll go back to. I wish they had further ones going back so you could track things over a longer period. Let's see. So we'll go here.
But that's just probably running into data cap.
Yeah. Let's see.
We still have to find it. We still have to get him on the show.
Yeah.
So what are we looking for?
I was looking to see if we could find that unannounced vehicle that's in concept with 2 devs, 2 concept artists.
It started
prior to.
Well, it had to be on a report that came out post them adding Q1 23 because that's when it starts.
Well, no, it started back in February of 22.
Oh, then we're looking at 2 different ones.
Let's see.
Because this says the one we were looking at says starting on 230101 through 230216.
Yeah. But if you click on it, it'll pull up the thing and that'll show you that it's part of that 67-week concept art. And so they're picking it back up, but we don't know when they put it down.
I imagine it was no, it's not before because that would have actually stretched before the roadmap. But no, it starts in February of last year. Very interesting.
And that's the hard thing is keeping the Shiny Trackers are a really great tool, but keeping track of an individual thing, especially the unannounced ones, is really difficult.
All right, we're past half an hour. Ugh. So we're going to get a half an hour of hat.
Yep.
It's hot in here.
Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Reopen close tab. We'll go back to this one.
I mean, I'm aiming for 4K. I don't know why you'd pick a resolution of 2023. That seems an odd. Like, what's your aspect ratio? Sorry. I mean, it's 2K. I mean, I guess it's good. I don't know. It's fine.
So the good thing is, even though there wasn't anything on the official roadmap that was added, they did add the Polaris. Hooray! Going into production. So the first part of the sprint starts there. It only goes out to here, but that just means that when we get the downstream, the big update in beginning of February, then it'll get extended out. Almost guarantee it. Unless this was an oops or a misclick or something by Jake, but yeah,
I doubt it. I think he's a bit more skilled than that.
He's very meticulous. Obviously, the Galaxy was changed from unannounced, and then whatever this unannounced vehicle is going into production. So, but it's just a part-time sprint, which is interesting though, because of the way that it's scheduled with the amount of load. It seems odd that with that many with the load, the only thing I can think of is the calculation is weird because of the break or something, or they're picking up and putting it back down. I wonder. Whatever. At least there's another unannounced vehicle going into production. Obviously, the C8R was updated. Argo SRV got the end date was extended just a couple of weeks by adding more vehicle content work. But that's what's interesting to me is that the amount of updates that they did it's interesting that they did these updates when they did, because so many of these updates are related to the vehicle content team, which is an upstream team.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. So they're making little changes, especially of things that are already um
I
uh,
wonder if that was because of the rescheduling between 318 dropping into Q1 23 and 40 dropping to
mhm,
Q4 2023. I
yeah.
wonder if like this was like the beginning of, hey, stuff needs to get moved around, so this is going to be all here, and
Well,
this is
and
just like the foreshadowing of the whole
with vehicle content,
rescheduling.
remember with the vehicle Q&A for um on Star Citizen Live during or IAE,
The super
they
talk.
talked, they were
Yeah.
talking about how they're literally in planning, decision making, of what they're going to do. Well, they made their decision on the
Mm-hmm.
Banu Merchantman, and so they stopped working on it essentially um, in November, and freed
Which
up all these people from vehicle content, design devs, artists, all that, and those people were essentially given over to other things in order to provide that work that they're talking about, working on other ships and supporting other teams, like continuing the Argo SRV, like work, doing the scheduled work for Bounty Hunter V2, because obviously that's a priority.
Mhm. As
Vehicle
much as I love
content,
to
you know.
harvest the tears of Banu Merchantman owners, like, one, the later the ship comes in, the better it will be. Two, the fact that we have no bizarre gameplay, and we're not going to have it for probably the next 3 years or so, and we have no Banu, like, I do understand. I definitely understand. Like, I've had an Orion, I'm pretty sure, at one point. Like, I love the Starfarer. That was also one that was a really long in development. And still needs rework because it's bad. But the, it does lack sense to try and shoehorn the Banu Merchantman into a game where we don't even have the resource manager. like like
Yeah, I get that it
I'm
hurts,
trying to
but I
sympathize with the like
well, and I
even
think
though
it would help a lot if they talked about why they decided to start working on it, because that's the thing. It's like, okay, I was like, okay, when they first said they were working on it, I was like, okay, you're working on it. Are you really that confident in the gameplay coming for it that soon? I didn't see it, but I was like, all right, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I just know what they show us, here. And as we got closer and closer to this point, it's like, why the hell are they working on that ship?
I think it was
Yeah, it's been in the
more
backlog for a long time, but that doesn't justify it being made if the gameplay isn't there for it. Hey,
I,
Ionic,
I
what's going on?
I think it was more getting through the reconcepting of all the old ships,
Mm-hmm.
and they just like took it a bit far with the reconcepting that we got a almost gray box. Was the exterior gray box or was the exterior
Yeah.
just white box complete?
Exterior is pretty much gray box complete, it sounded like,
Okay, yeah, I
and
think they
the
just took the
interior
reconcepting
was
too
just
far.
white box. Yeah, they did all the reconcept work, and they're like, hey, we've got these people available, so let's get started.
Yeah, yeah,
And unfortunately, they hyped that up far more than they should have.
yeah. I
They
think they're
really
just trying
could.
to get through their
Yeah.
backlog of reconcepting the work they need to do because
Hmm.
once they reconcept everything that they have, it
Yep.
will be a lot easier to slot them into the pipeline going
Yeah.
forward.
Especially because Reconcept is entire white box.
Yeah.
3D white box in engine, in editor, ready to go. Like if you look at the update that we got for the Polaris, or what they got when they showed off the Galaxy after selling it, that white box tour that we got. That's what concept phase done looks like now. And so when they do that, it means that when it does go into production, it's much further along, as far as work, and being ready to go.
Let's see what
And
are
I mean, that's why the Crucible was originally scheduled to have its reconcept done. They're just going along down the line with those older ships for reconcepting. But yeah, it's
I just realized there's not a lot
I,
of Anvil to go.
it seems like it was a big misstep announcing that they're putting the Banu Merchantman into production if they really didn't have strong intentions to finish it. But everybody makes mistakes, and it is what it is. But that
I think
people are
actually
going to be butthurt
there
about
are
that for a long
3
time.
ships, I believe, waiting for a reconcept, and then we're done. Because the Orion already had its reconcept way back when they started shooting to white box.
Yeah, or at least to some
Crucible,
extent.
Endeavor, and Genesis are the only ones left,
Mm-hmm.
which they're all 2014 concepts.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're actually doing some pretty good work in that. Yeah,
Yeah. But
they
you
should.
can
They should
see
say
that
that like
it did it. I think it's sort of a little bit of it. If you own a Banu Merchantman and you look at this and you're like, okay, I can see where all that work that was scheduled, I can see where that is going. The work for the cargo system refactor, work for the Argo SRV, for Bounty Hunter V2. There's a lot of vehicle content stuff that is okay. Hey, the Banu Merchantman isn't getting worked on, but all these other things, we're getting a lot of consolation prizes that, when you add them all up, it adds a lot to the game in the short term. The I would imagine some of the people that were working on the Banu Merchantman are the ones who are going to continue to work on the whole sea. And who knows when that's coming? It's hard to know because they just keep on working on stuff. It's like, what are you guys working on? The monthly report said it was, pretty much done. I get it's heartening to see them still working on it. It means that they're wanting to get it done. But give us some sort of idea. Like, are you working on getting it done because you think the game's going to be ready for it, in Q2 or something? And
that's that.
I've been
That's the part
begging.
of the roadmap roundups that they don't they say they want to do, but they don't like. It doesn't make it into the words that they like. Is to give insight into
Mhm.
why the decision was made.
Yes,
They
exactly.
tell us the decision
Yeah.
and where it went, but they don't
What's
tell us
the
why they
insight?
made that decision.
Yeah. What's the insight to that decision making? We decided we're going to do this. Why? And so you get some of that in the roadmap roundup, but but it's only for certain things, and there's so many other things that obviously we are able to see, and we're like, okay, that's fine, but why? You know, um,
Yeah,
hooray!
and
The links is in production and going to continue to be in production, and they're prioritizing it.
wait,
Again, more
how
people from
old is the
vehicle
Lynx?
content.
Lynx
Old.
is also 2014.
Yeah.
So same as the Crucible, Endeavor, Genesis, Javelin.
Mm-hmm.
Also Gladius, Aquila, Phoenix, Core, Warden, Ursa, Freelancer series, Mustang series, Cutlass Red, Blue, Prowler, Taurus, Redeemer.
Mm-hmm. One thing that
I didn't expect all those things. The stuff that's released. The Lynx feels so much older than the Gladius though.
yeah.
But the Gladius was like once they nailed down Squadron, they like made the Gladius.
Mm-hmm.
Which was 2014 when they released the 2016 video.
What I think is interesting is the change to the resource management sprint and vehicle content.
What changed? Hold on.
Vehicle content EU freed up 39 days of work.
Freed up 30.
Obviously, that's a priority because they're talking. That we'll get to that here in the bit with the letter from the chairman. But I don't know if there was any other changes regarding it prior to that. Or it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, we pulled these people from it because we've already got people committed from US vehicle content, or something like that. Because we know how big of a priority that is as far as the amount of people working on it and scheduled to work on it with the different teams. Or, they could have had a breakthrough, we don't know. But
yeah.
that was an interesting
possible.
one for me because it's not like they're deprioritizing that.
Right. It is possible, like there's sometimes, not often, not once in a blue moon, way not often, that your schedule and the bugs you expected to find were not the bugs you found, and the ones you found were actually a lot easier to get through. Or let's say like they were working a thing, and then another team actually found the crack for that bug already, and you just took their fix for it. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's totally possible they didn't run into as much problems as they thought, and they may have overscheduled, which is how they've said they've scheduled for as long as they've been scheduling. They do schedule in margin for error. Just most of the time, there are 50, there are like 500 points of data that they use to schedule a team. One of those is like head count and their growth in head count, their bugs and their bugs that they'll expect to encounter, the difficulty, the scheduling of those devs. And a lot of that all shifts without anyone saying so. Like someone gets sick, or someone else puts in some code that makes more bugs than they thought. The tech wasn't where they thought it was going to be. They didn't get to hire that person, so a lot of it shifts around. It's possible that the person who was there was able to not take or didn't go on vacation, or the tech just worked with them. No one made new bugs. Like it's possible that they scheduled way better than, like, not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah.
And
Well, remember when they were talking about the schedule and how they plan, and how basically with the with the cutter, John Crew was saying that they literally got it right to the day with the planning how many people were needed, for how many days, and like this is their new schedule, the new way they do it going forward, so they should be a lot more accurate, which is just nuts that they got it down to the day. For, I mean, it's a smaller ship, so yeah, it's easier to be accurate, but even if it's a bigger ship and they get it down to within a couple weeks, or so, or a month, like that's huge. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of pans out, to sort of track the ships and everything, see if things get moved around as much.
I imagine even when they go to tackle the Kraken, I imagine that will still get delayed.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Like I can understand, like they get a day, a week, a couple weeks accurate on every single single seat ship going forward. Totally understand that. I expect that almost.
Mm-hmm.
But the second you get multi-crew, it's like, no, there's too many moving parts. Too many.
Yeah.
If they can get within a month, I'll be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to badmouth the devs. I'm just saying, like, there are moving parts, and they move. Imagine the Kraken getting bigger. The Kraken's not getting bigger. It's full interior white boxed.
Yeah, well, what they said is that the cargo bay isn't quite big enough to hold the amount of cargo that they have for it, based off the the 1.25 meters squared per SCU, and so that the cargo bay would have to stretch a little bit. But literally, all they're going to do is take the cargo bay and make it fatter. They don't have to do anything else for the rest of the ship. Like everybody, when that came out, everybody's like, "Oh, sweet, the Kraken's going to get bigger," and I'm like, why would the Kraken get bigger when all they have to do is make the cargo bay fat? Which is good, because it doesn't mean that it'll carry more cargo, but it does mean that the how big it is, as far as interior space for you to use for whatever, is going to be bigger than we might have originally thought. And Walker 300 says, question, and I actually need to figure out how to do that, so that way those things pop up, like we get a
That's
sort of
you're
signal.
gonna need to get an extra program.
Oh, yay, more thing. I can't even get sound alerts to work.
Yep. First get sound alerts to work, then ask
But-
Paul what software he uses to actually log the
Because
question.
eventually I would love for us to be able to have that for like end of.
Yeah, so we can do it like all at the end instead of having to scroll up to find them. Yeah.
I noticed that one of the elevators at New Babbage Spaceport has red lights on it with a restricted notice on it. Is that typical, or is it possible that's reserved for newer upcoming gameplay? I guarantee you, every door in every landing zone that says restricted, or just doesn't open, like some, especially like the alleys in Area 18, those will go to other areas, and either you will have to have the reputation, the permissions from whatever faction, org or something like that, or hack, or cut it open, that sort of stuff. In order to get past that and to go to those other areas, there'll be gameplay and those will be areas that they flesh out. We just don't know what exactly they are, but especially like the back alley ones in Area 18, those are the ones I want to know about. Like, what crime lord back here, or shady, business thing back there are you going to be able to find? But yeah, they are everywhere throughout the verse. They're in the space stations and stuff, and those doors are gonna go to things eventually.
If not get moved. Like I have a slightly different opinion, which is they were just put there for art. Most of them were put there either for art or the ones in New Babbage Spaceport with
This is a
the
hangar
like
door in
commercial landings. Those have
318.
purpose.
In 317, it's a regular hangar elevator. Like in the, are you talking about in the room with all the ASOP terminals where you call your ship up?
It can't be. Those were always used.
One of the doors that goes to a hangar which was changed. That's the one. Huh, interesting. I don't know. I would say that if it's in 318 like that, I wouldn't be surprised if it has something to do with, well, the domestic flights. Those like
that has purpose. We know that.
Yeah, the sort of like terminal area, where you go to catch your, probably wouldn't be a Genesis, but your Spirit E1 flight from Microtech to Orison. That's a different area. You're not going to go down into a hangar to catch those flights, unless like if it's an NPC one. If you're if you're getting picked up by a player under contract, then you'll go down to the hangar. But if it's blocked off now and over in that area and it wasn't blocked off before, I wouldn't be surprised if if that has something, if that there's a reason for that gameplay wise. But don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So wrapping up the progress tracker Delta report. Ship CPUs, end date was moved earlier. Basically, this is just probably some housekeeping on Jake's part, where the people that were working on this got reprioritized a while back, and now he's getting around to removing that part of the sprint to sort of reflect that it's not continuing to get worked on. Interesting, Squadron 42 vehicle support. That is this is one of those things that's very nebulous, and that I had 2 beers with dinner, so I don't have a third one right now. But Squadron 42 vehicle support. Here, let's look at the actual description for it.
Walker, if you could get a image or location for that door, I would love to look into that more, because I looked up a tour of 317. I don't see an orange light door.
Well, it was open in 317 and 318. It's not.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it went the other way around. Okay. So 318, it's got orange lights on it?
Apparently, or caution tape or some shit. Some cones that say wet floor. But you can see that there's been a whole lot of work on this sort of nebulous sprint for Squadron 42 vehicle support, because it's an all-encompassing thing in order to just polishing and iterate on various vehicles needed for the Squadron 42 single player campaign. And you can see that they're doing a lot of work on the vehicles in order to basically get them up to gold standard for, and they mentioned that in that SCL with the vehicle team, where they're talking about that Squadron 42 gold standard work. And they're basically getting this, the ships in Squadron 42 gold standard ready. And it's, they make it like this so that way they just don't have a whole bunch of individual sprints listings for those different vehicles, but it also allows them to hide things in here that are unannounced. If you've watched one of my lore equals gameplay videos, you know what I'm probably talking about. because, and the other thing is there is a similar sprint just for the Vandal fleet, and there's a similar sprint just for enemy ships, Squadron 42 enemy ships. So, um, yeah, this one is one to keep an eye on. It's good that they are focusing on the Squadron 42 vehicles in order to get them ready. It's a good indicator of where Squadron 42 is. And yeah, that's pretty much it as far as stuff on the Delta report for the progress tracker. But let's just go through the scheduled deliverables really quick in order to look at these.
That's a lot of them.
Yeah. There's 41 working on 30. We don't have to look at everything. The biggest ones are.
Oh, there's even more. There's a header that says click me. There's even more data.
Yeah. I don't do that
Oh my
stuff just
gosh.
because there's a whole lot of nebulous stuff. I'm not going to do that on stream, but these are the things that are being worked on right now. The active sprints right now. And so you can see that the teams come back, go back and forth working on different things. Shiny pop-up tracker. I don't know. But this is what it's always good to at least check up on this and see what they're working on, just to see, what's a priority and what is a focus, right now and for the near future, rather than, oh, okay, well, the sprint goes through this period, but they're not actually working on it at this point. They've, put it on the back burner and then they're picking it up, but the whole sprint goes through here. So this is how you keep context with those things. And that's why, Bounty Hunter V2, see it mentioned here, see all the teams working on it. Yes, it was a priority. They talked about how much of a priority it was. Pardon me. Back in the letter from the chairman 7 months ago, they were talking about, they wanted to have it out before the end of this year. Well, they've been working on, like if you go back and you look at the scheduled deliverables report and look at the Bounty Hunter V2 sprint, you can see that they've been continuously working on that all year long. And then you can also look at the associated tech that's part of the quantum simulation, the other AI related services, and you can see how much work that has been done on those, as well as when it ended, which is a really good indicator. That the back end to support Bounty Hunter V2 seems to be nearly done. And it's, now the gameplay teams are, the people that, basically put it, into the game and tie it to the back end are doing all their, are doing a lot of work, getting their work done. And we talked about this because Nazeris and I did a big Spectrum Pulse on it. You can see there's a whole lot of teams working on it, but we know
Bounty
who's
Hunter V2 is kind
continuing.
of one of the big steps to a lot of gameplay.
Oh yeah, and systemic gameplay.
Yes, yeah, and it's Bounty Hunter V2 plus Cargo Refactor basically is the foundation of future gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily those two gameplay specifically, but all the things that those two pieces of gameplay touch.
Yeah, the things they are tied into, and it's a web, but
they cover
these services, yeah,
they cover everything from haulers to pirates to VMPCs to subsumption, NPC tracking, ledgers, criminality, supply and demand, the resource system. Like, it touches everything. So those two things alone touch like 90% of the gameplay of future Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm. It was an SCL in December when they were talking about working on building interiors. Location concept art is working on the interiors, the concept art for building interiors, and the Montreal team is getting started on it. So, there it is. We'll scroll through the Squadron 42 stuff. Cutting Tier 2. They're working on that because that's important, because we're going to be able to cut through things, pretty soon, along with, hacking, etc. The freight
Hacking and then
elevators,
concussive hacking.
yeah, yeah, concussive maintenance, yeah.
Yep.
EVA tier 2 for the freight elevators.
Can't
They talked about
wait.
how we need freight elevators to further iterate on the cargo factor and hauling gameplay. Well, that's a big priority right now. Um, the audio is downstream, and the fact that they're doing audio work on the derelict spaceship points of interest is a good thing, because it means that it's a strong indicator that we're going to be seeing a lot more of these in the very near future. um, Especially because with PES coming online and them being able to effectively stream all the entities associated with things like derelicts, get them on and off the server so that they aren't bogging down the server. um, that the universe is going to start to feel a lot more full over the next couple quarters. New player
Yeah.
experience, thank God.
Freight
Yes,
elevators need for persistent hairs. Yes.
and here we'll keep going, but um,
Persistent streaming.
let's see. Obviously, they have a lot of people working on that and are going to continue to work on that. But
Yeah, we'll also be covering server meshing a little more in depth in the part about the letter, because we got a new definition or a new kind of mini roadmap of the technology they're planning for server meshing. So we
mhm,
actually have a new definition that's going to be added to our lexicon.
yep. Um, and it's interesting here on resource management. They on the let's see here, duplicate. We'll go back up to the top. So we're going to look at the resource management on the uh, Delta report, and then we'll look at the resource management on the scheduled deliverables report, and we'll compare and contrast. So
Oh, that is weird.
yeah, so the they freed up 39 days of work. So the resource management vehicle content EU freed up 39 days of work for art devs. But resource management right here, vehicle content US, one art, one design dev, EU PU gameplay feature team. When the EU PU gameplay feature team is working on stuff, they are taking a feature that has been made by other teams and implementing it into the verse. That's what the gameplay feature team does. Is they take that feature, the however that mechanic works, and then they implement it into the verse and make it usable, make it so we can actually do it.
You should open up the bars in that one.
Yeah, very busy.
It's as far as the sprint that was there, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
As far as this tracker is concerned, which
Yeah.
means it is almost certain that is a 319 feature. That the resource manager will be at least a ship in 319.
Yeah, I think we will see the introduction of it as part of 319, and then they'll continue to add more to it over the year, because here is the USPU gameplay feature team, which is an upstream team. They get scheduled out a year in advance, so they'll be working on this right up until 319 launches. I think 319 is probably going to be like just like 317 was a it was 317 that was it was supposed to be Q1 last year, and it ended up being like well into April. I think we're gonna have the same thing with 319. Gameplay feature team will be working on it for whatever ships they're introducing it with as part of 319. But then look at where you have the vehicle content teams are continuing to work on it after, let's see where. Oh, here, we'll pull it up on the progress tracker.
The problem with showing new hires, it doesn't always mean the same thing. You could have a color student is a new hire. Sure, he made the coffee vendor that we got. Or you could have a new hire, literally like the guy lead artist of like was the Jedi Fallen Order. They don't equate to the same thing. So just saying this guy was recently hired doesn't mean the same thing depending on who's being hired.
Mm-hmm.
And the game industry is always moving people around. We've seen a couple of people. I think the one we know where she went is Sarah McCulloch. Sarah McCullen. Sarah
Mm-hmm.
McCullen went to go work at, I think it was, I forget what the studio's called, but basically the studio that made Wipeout, and she got to go work on Wipeout, and that's her dream job. There's been another one that recently left for Ubisoft because he's always wanted to work at Ubisoft, so he got to go do his dream job. That kind of thing keeps happening all around the industry, and I bet you there has been somebody hired by CIG, came from another studio because, or we've heard of actually some stories that they've came from other studios because Star Citizen's doing stuff that they really enjoy. So, just marking somebody as new hire doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Good sentiment, but there's no data there.
Yeah, and there's only so much information you can show, really. Otherwise, it just turns into clutter. Again,
we're not here to stalk the education of dads. We don't need that. This was a college student, or this has got 5 years of experience. That's LinkedIn stuff. That's not the progress tracker stuff.
Mm-hmm. And let's see.
What?
Deliverables scheduled to begin or continue work within 2 weeks. Santok Yai, we know that was going into production. They talked about that in that SCL. Aerodynamic control services. Interesting. Engineering dev, getting started on that, continuing that work, which is, that's a good thing. Will make atmospheric flight far more interesting and challenging, along with
that
adding,
will be the downfall of the cutter.
So many people. But yeah, and that and the actual we have the thrusters efficiency curves are in the game, but they are not anywhere. They're very easy, and they're not meant to be the way they are right now. It's going to be far more challenging in the future, but they've got the base tech in there. It's kind of like with the room system. The room system is in the game. It just doesn't really work yet because they haven't added everything that goes with it. The room system's going to start working when we get, the resource management and life support and all that.
Which is a couple ones down.
Mm-hmm. Crusader Spirit in production. Argo SRV in production. Jump points. Working on them. Got to get jump points ready for going to Pyro.
Wow.
Life support, they talked about how that's a priority, and they're almost done with that in the monthly reports. Gameplay feature team working on it. So they are taking the tech and that feature and implementing it into the PU. Lockable containers. Again, EU-PU gameplay feature team is implementing a thing that has been made by another team into the PU.
Which, another thing, like, a lot of this stuff, but this one specifically we've been able to see, and this is actually something that I'm probably going to trend for my videos going through the entire year. The mission that we saw running in the Pyro demo, the 3 ways to play Pyro mission, that might actually be possible when we get there. And no other game showcase has been possible when we get there. So when we had the Microtech thing, when they actually first went to Pyro, we didn't have Pyro and we didn't have that mission. But that mission may actually be pretty possible when we get there. Lockable containers was one of the things in that mission. And we have the places even in the game now in 3.18. AI's, I'm not going to put any stock in AI working.
And even if we don't have hacking yet, but I think they'll introduce the two. They're working on cutting tier 2. And maybe you have to either find the code on a body, or you have to have the Pyro multi-tool, the cutting attachment, in order to get into the lockable container, to get that loot. And you're going to want to get that loot because they'll put the good stuff, or they might even put mission items in there. But yeah, it's whenever I see EU/PU gameplay feature team working on something, I get excited for that thing. MFD rework. We'll talk more about that when we get to the uh,
Letter.
chairman letter. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people were getting excited about the Origin X1 going into production. It's just one design dev working on it for a month.
If you
So
yes, however, it's not even on there.
North End EU what? EU which
only
team?
It's only 2 weeks of actual work. I forget where it is. But where did I even find that? Oh, because the ShinyTracker doesn't actually have the different features on it. The X1 has it had its vehicle feature is being worked on now, and it had its concept back in February 22 Q1. And then there's 2 weeks of US vehicle content where they actually build the thing and put it in the game. It's taken 73 weeks for 2 weeks of work. Well, 2 weeks of actual geometry work. Apparently, they need to update the something about the feature of it.
Yeah,
and the concept was done way back in February of last year. Hilarious. It's just been the butt of jokes for a year. It's hilarious. I like it. 2 weeks of geometry.
They're continuing to use Rastar to make all sorts of outposts, the independent and outlaw. We've seen, the independent ones, the ones you saw in the Pyro demo in 2021. That was a independent outpost. The outlaw ones are the ones you saw all the concept artwork with the jail and like the machine guns and stuff. That's the stuff that they've been working on for the outlaw theme variants. Persistent hangars, we were just talking about that with the freight elevators, because the freight elevators is where'd it go?
That's another potential 319.
I know it was. Didn't we see freight elevators on the
progress report?
I could have sworn it was on here somewhere.
I don't think so.
I'm losing my mind. Anyway, we saw it, but freight elevators and persistent hangars are both.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Freight elevators both being worked on. Again, the USPU gameplay feature team working on that January through March with engineering devs for now. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be a 319 thing. I think it might be a
320.
If we get a 320 or 319.x. I think with 319 we're going to see it be just like 317 was this last year.
Okay.
I think as they continue to
I think they're figuring out that they could just like not stop working on stuff, and they could just like finish stuff.
Yeah, because they talked about how 317.2 really could have been its own patch, and I think they're going to continue to iterate on PES as they're working. There'll be a lot of people, the networking people are going to be working on server meshing, but there's going to be some people, on the stay behind team with PES who continue to iterate it, add in those additional services that they've been working on, and then you'll also have, I think 319's major feature is going to be Bounty Hunter V2 with the associated services as part of the Quantum. So
I don't think freight elevators has anything to do with ships and ground vehicles.
No, I don't think we'll be moving any vehicles
cargo.
through freight elevators.
Because it's for freight. I forget where I saw the explanation. It might be in the letter, but it's specifically, it's kind of like the ASOP for your cargo. So you can, let's say, buy 100 SCU of titanium, have it delivered to your hangar, but it doesn't show up in your hangar. It shows up in your cargo elevator. You go to your hangar, and then you say, I request, my cutter can hold 8 SCU of titanium. So we pull up, give me 8 SCU of titanium, and elevator comes up. You have 8 SCU of titanium. You load it into your ship. You fly.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
You can see the freight elevators in the hangars right now. They're already in game. They just don't function. And so all they're doing is making them function and then tying them to the back end so that way things appear out of the ether, from the entity graph or the quantum economy, and then appear in that elevator, and then it goes up into the elevator and the door opens and magically you can see it now. And then, or if you're putting something away, or sending something off to quantum or the entity graph, you put it in the elevator and the doors close and it gets stored away, and streamed off the
Magic
server,
doors.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah, magic doors.
Magic doors.
It is the, what do they call them for the NPCs? The NPC locker, what, not lockers,
I know what you mean.
the NPC spawn lockers. It's a spawn locker, but cargo. It's a freight, but for cargo and supplies and all sorts of other stuff.
Which for Hercules and Caterpillar, oh boy, Caterpillars are just gonna be useless for next year. Mm-hmm. For Hercules players, it's just gonna be. I hope you're running with friends if you're trying to fly a Hercules and do some cargo, because ooh, that's a lot of cargo. Oh boy.
Obviously, persistent streaming and server meshing. This is just the overall sprint for the deliverable. Remember, this is not an all-inclusive thing because the individual services that get tied into, they talked about 18 services for PES, 4 services for server meshing. Those have their own separate deliverable on the progress tracker. But obviously, you can see that there are a whole bunch of teams working on this, single deliverable.
North End Trooper, the elevators in the underground facilities, current or future, have nothing to do with the cargo elevators for hangars.
Yeah,
no relation.
The ones that we saw in Underground 2.0 are elevators taking you to different levels of the underground facilities, but those underground facilities will have freight elevators. If you think about it, those underground facilities, like when Nazeris and I talked about the quantum economy before, was that 2 podcasts ago? Tony Z talked about how he wants factories and production nodes to be physicalized in game. And so if you're picking up cargo that is something that is manufactured in a city, initially it probably isn't going to be a physical location in a city, just that cargo for the power plants. Yeah. The power plants eventually are just going to show up in your freight elevator in your hangar for you to take to where ArtCore wants you to have them delivered because somebody ordered them. But if you're picking up weapons made by Bearing at their underground facility, which is a giant factory, in order to they've sold this many of whatever type of gun to this buyer. Maybe it's a some store on Microtech or a station, and you need to deliver them in order for them to go into those inventory. Well, you'll go to that underground facility where those are being produced. They'll pop up in a freight elevator there next to the landing pad or the hangar there, and then it'll get loaded up into your ship and off you go. That's how the quantum simulation is supposed to work, and that the actual location where that thing is produced is where you pick it up to take it to where that thing is consumed or sold. Just like with the mining facilities, those underground facilities will do a bunch of different things, but you're still going to have outposts that produce things, and you're going to go to those outposts. You'll produce raw goods, and you'll take those raw goods to wherever they're needed to make a finished product, like an underground facility or a city, like a landing zone on ArtCore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not your fault, Trooper. Like, everything that is miscommunicated or misunderstood, all of that lies on CIG.
Mhm.
It is literally they have an entire team. It's called the community team. It's their job to make sure you understand things. Now, yes, that does sound kind of harsh that any misunderstanding is CIG's fault, but that's literally their job.
Yeah.
Is to make sure the community understands. Like
The
the
thing is,
fact
the
that they're
community team
able,
is grossly understaffed, and there's
yeah, that
an
too.
inordinate amount of information to communicate. So
Yeah,
the
and the
they
fact
do
that
a
they're
good job
able,
with the resources they have available to them.
very much so,
But
yes. The fact that they're able to kind of just point at community members and content creators as, hey, no, guy has good information, is not uh, a crutch, but it's like it's a positive. It's like a blessing to them. Like uh, it, but is their ultimately it does lead back to it's their fault. It's not your fault.
mhm. Yeah, there will be freight elevators there, but they're just the ones that we're getting that they're working on right now are the ones that will be going to our persistent hangars first, and eventually they'll just use the same tech for underground facilities. There'll be an asteroid facilities too. Yeah, persistent hangars. Well, yeah, and not even just your persistent hangar, all the hangars. Even if you're just going to a hangar that you're landing at a space station, the freight elevator there will work and tie. Especially like the ones with the cargo decks. You know, that's where the cargo goes. If you land at a hangar to pick up cargo, it's going to get moved through some sort of Willy Wonka elevator from that external thing that you can see and into your hangar via freight elevator and then into your ship. Um, yeah, gin and tonic. Yep. Nope. It is an impossible task, and '07 to Jake and the rest of the community team. Ulf. I'm terrible with names for at least trying. Yeah. Um, it's certainly better than nothing, in my opinion. Um, oh yeah, we're back where we were. Okay. Um, yeah,
We were
persistent
at
hangers.
Link's quantum travel experience.
Yeah. So this is the big one that I wanted to point out. Quantum travel experience, but also the quantum simulation full
Wow,
time.
that bar's thick. Actually, if you open
Yeah.
it up, it's just full work all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No breaks.
Yeah.
Or bleeds fuel.
Gin and tonic. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Obviously, we have chatted over on Paul's stream numerous times. So thanks for coming and being a part of this. But yeah,
Politically correct.
this is the one that I was when I saw that hey, they're continuing this work. It's good. This is something. It's just like with persistent streaming and server meshing, that sprint will go on into perpetuity as they continue to iterate it and go on to dynamic server meshing and what have you. The quantum simulation isn't going to be done for a long time. But it will be in game a lot sooner than we
Mr.
think.
Tony Zervik as much as I do, which is very little compared to actually knowing a person, this will never be done. This will never be done.
Yeah. But it'll be in game and functioning, and they'll be adding more and more things to it as time goes on. But
he's trying to simulate existence itself. Yeah. So
but the good thing is, it's prioritized. They've got 5 engineering devs working on it. And Nazeris, you remember when we did the Bounty Hunter V2 and the more recent podcast, now that iCache is largely done, we shifted some resources.
No, don't say its name.
It was the biggest oof moment, but PES is functioning.
It hurts every time I hear the name now.
But PES is functioning in the PU, and and the bulk of the work is done in order to get it functioning and get it into the main dev branch and get it into our hands. And so now they actually are shifting engineering resources to work on the quantum simulation. So that's a very heartening thing for me to see. Player interaction experience Tier 0 and Tier 2. Tier 0, USPU gameplay feature team. Again, there they are. Hooray. And the last bit is just really the unannounced vehicles. We can see which ones they're working on and what work is actually being done. A lot of concept art being done. Ships being pushed through concept, but really only one unannounced. One unannounced vehicle in production. So we don't know if some of these concepts will be going into production as soon as they finish their concept phase. But I think, to me, having only one unannounced vehicle in production is a good thing, because we can see which announced vehicles are in production, and they are working on the backlog. And it may not be the big ship backlog, but they are working on the backlog, the ships in there. Oh, and lastly, EU-PU gameplay feature team working on vehicle tractor beams. Yeah, it goes all the way out
No,
into
they don't work on
May.
tractor beams.
But yes, soon
Tractor beams are a
TM.
lie. Obviously, the Star Citizen never gets anything done. They're in development. Nothing ever comes out for this game, and it's a dead game, and you scam. And
the question is, Nazeris, am I going to get to do another sit rep on vehicle tractor beams before they release?
It's like your home is vehicle tractor beams.
It's my passion project. I can't wait to just be able to yeet things all over the place with my ship.
Slow development here. Oh gosh, I need to hashtag every video with slow development here.
Yeah. North End, it's the vehicle tractor beams for all the ships. So not just the SRV.
Tulsi, Caterpillar.
The Taurus, the Cutlass
Taurus. Oh my, the Taurus.
It's the 315P, right? That has one on the nose. Origin 315P.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I think so.
The Raft.
Yeah. SRV, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch.
I picked up an SRV because I'm an Argo fan.
I'm building
the
Argo.
Spirit
Argo fan.
C1, right? That's the cargo one. C1. Yeah.
Yeah, cargo C. Yeah.
Yep.
C2.
Taurus. Yep. Caterpillar.
Does the C2 have an embedded tractor beam? I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm not a Crusader person, so I'm not going to speak on that because I can't. I don't follow the Crusader ships that much. The Galaxy does have tractor beams. They are not it has the one to pull the ore pods up, but then there's also the tractor beams on rails in the cargo module in order for moving containers, as well as the containers will go onto the lift when you're landed, and then the tractor beams on the rails will move over to the lift, pick up the containers, and then move them over to the cargo grid. North End, I think the tractor beams there's multiple sizes, and it's basically just making it so they shouldn't have to do anything for the other ships. As long as other than if for some reason during production they didn't add the hard point onto the ship. Some of the ships don't have the MFDs, where because you will operate the tractor beam remotely via an MFD, kind of like you do remote turrets. And they showed them off in the whole C update mid last year, when they're talking about that. But yeah, it's basically just like adding another weapon type, but because of the way that tractor beams work and with vehicles and everything, they had to do engineering and physics type work in order to make them work on ships versus just a little handheld. The thing that is curious to me and kind of bothersome though is I can understand and appreciate why there's more work needed to get vehicle tractor beams working, but how come we don't have the two-handed one? What if it's the two-handed one should literally just be the same as the tractor beam attachment on the multi-tool, but make the beam a little bit bigger and you change the properties as far as what it can lift and so on. If there's a reason for it, I would love to know what it is. Blizzard, is there a need for it? No, at this point,
Yes, there is.
technically. Well, I mean, we only have the one SCU containers, but
No, if you blow up a ship, you have a 2 SCU.
oh yeah, that too.
They're there.
But even though you can do pretty much everything with the small one, I want the big one. I want to, yeah.
Start being an asteroid terrorist.
Yes. Yeah, except for we would have to find an asteroid that's phallic looking. Remember, like from Austin Powers, with the I want to do that. So the Hurstons are like looking at the radar. What the hell is that? It looks like a giant. And then it comes into Lorville and blows it all up.
People live there, right?
It's sacrifices must be made. And Walker 300, I would like to know why you can't do that too. I want grappling hooks, and I really want to have ships with like instead of a tractor beam, I want to put on a hoist or something like that, so I can lower people down or pick a load back, pick a load up or something like that.
I feel like the word grappling hook was said in the past year.
Could have been. I don't know.